Welcome to the Grande Bouffe.
The big feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. We are here, as always, to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Cole. I'm trying this thing where I'm just gonna slide across the mic. A whole hour of this? Does that sound good?
No, I think that your new girlfriend is
all right.
affecting your brain.
All right, you're making it a little too real right now. Well, let's leave the real world out of this. Let's leave the presidency out of this. Let's leave our personal lives out of this. How's your Thanksgiving? And did you guys talk about politics? This is all evergreen content, so I'm just asking from nowhere time.
We consumed a very, very delightful bottle of vino, red wine, and drank some eggnog, and had turkey pot pie from Otto Manelli, and watched The Lion in the Living Room, the kitty cat documentary on Netflix.
That's a very New Yorker Thanksgiving.
It's 50 minutes long. I got up, made an egg for each of us because, you got to have a light breakfast on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then you got to watch like a short something.
Right.
So 50-minute documentary in the living room on the 75-inch projected screen.
I watched The Godfather.
You did?
This is my tradition. I think it was invented by the AMC network, but I've adopted it. My friend Emily's adopted it.
So did you watch the trilogy or just the first one?
On Thanksgiving, I watched part 1. On
Okay.
Christmas, I watched part 2. I never watched part 3.
Smart man.
Yep.
Wonderful. That's a really good. I think some of our listeners are going to adopt your program.
It's it's an amazing thing. I'm not sure what it clicks into. My family is not in the not that the mob is a thing. There's no such thing as the mafia.
Not anymore.
I mean, it never was.
Oh, really? Do tell. I didn't know.
I mean, we just import olive oil, and we're very charitable, and people reward us for our charity with certain gifts back to us.
Like lobbyists.
Exactly. We're educating people about whether or not they should do something or have their brain splattered on contracts. We're educating them about the benefits of doing those things.
Huh. Well, I guess at some point, now that you've let that cat out of the bag, we're gonna have to do The Godfather on this program.
There's just infinite things to say. I watched it with my dad for the first time, and I have to say my dad is creepily good at watching The Godfather, if that makes sense. Because part of watching The Godfather to me is I think I'm kind of dumb when it comes to the sort of plot that movies like that involve, so it's always engrossing. I am not entirely sure who the Tatalias are. There's someone referred to as the Turk. Maybe next Thanksgiving I'll figure out exactly who these people are. But my dad had a very sort of cold-blooded insights into what was going on behind the scenes. And I'd say he's creepily good at watching The Godfather.
And your dad, who is a military attorney, or was?
He was. He's practicing again now. I mean, like he's a real Robert Duvall. I always forget that. What's his name? Well, let's just go with Boo Radley, the Robert Duvall in The Godfather.
Yeah.
The Boo Radley Esquire. There we go.
Nice. Well, it's a very good segue, the blood part anyway, into our film today, Blood Simple. And the beer that I've chosen for us has multiple references, I think, because it's from two brothers. And, of course, Blood Simple, Joel and Ethan Coen, although...
Oh, are they related?
I think so. I think they
are.
That's
so cute.
I think they're siblings. And
they should make more movies. This one was nice.
So Joel directed it and Ethan co-wrote it, is how
is that always
presented.
is that always the setup? I mean,
It's a good question that you've asked, and I will try and research the answer for you.
I've seen. I don't think it's always exactly the same. I'd be interested to find out more about their share of the workload, because it's rare for people to consistently work with a co-collaborator.
Well, they've had a good thing going for a long, long time, and this film was the beginning of it all, as far as I can tell.
Well, not to get too far off track, we're talking about a beer, though.
Yeah, we're talking about the beer. So it's two brothers, of course, Joel and Ethan Coen, two brothers, and it's the Revelry Imperial Red Ale. So I thought Blood Simple and Red Ale.
You hit this one on the nose, man.
Yeah.
Or the head. You hit it on the nose. You either it was on the nose or you hit it on the head. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was the head and the nose in this case. 9.5.
Oh, boy.
So we're starting out a little strong.
We a little behind the scenes. We might be doing 2 episodes today, so this will be an interesting night.
Yeah, see, don't go telling secrets. This record's got to sell. This resiny Imperial Red Ale is loaded with citrus and pine aromas that dominate the complex toasty malt character. Revel in the hops. It's really good.
So, like I said, I can't wait till we get your wife on to learn a bit more of how to talk about alcohol. But I'm just gonna free associate. I feel like I'm lost in the woods, and I come across a group of men cutting down trees with giant blades, and then the more sensitive, artsy one looks at me, and he's like, "Do you need a place to sleep tonight?" And I cannot place his accent because I'm in Pennsylvania, and then he kind of sounds like he's from Transylvania, and the word association registers with me, and then he takes me to his very quaint cabin, and he pours me a home brewed beer.
That's it. I like your little story. You gotta.
That's what this beer tastes like.
I like it's dry.
Then his brother comes out.
Yeah, exactly. It has a very nice dry mouthfeel. We've talked about mouthfeel before.
Yeah. Why don't we just call it feel? I'm assuming it's in your mouth.
That's a beer term.
I know. I'm just critiquing the beer term. It has a very interesting finger feel, and I'm like, get your fucking hands out of my beer.
So it has it sneaks up on you, this beer. It doesn't taste like 9.5. This is a very tricky beer, because you might drink a couple of these feeling like, oh yeah, I'm just in my second beer, and then
it is kind of, there's like a
fall
syrupy,
down the stairs.
There's like a syrupy kind of taste to it, which I think is the alcohol seeping into your bloodstream very covertly. But
I think that's the citrus, actually.
You think it's the citrus?
Yeah. But it's really yummy, and I'm not familiar with this particular Two Brothers beer. The label is lovely. It has the silhouette of someone playing a violin, and I paid $3.45 per bottle for the 2 bottles that we have.
It's saying more about your bodega than
Nope, not my bodega. We're back to
You're back to
Noble Grains.
Noble Grains?
Visiting Bora at Noble Grains on 95th Street.
Shout out to Bora, 95th Street at Noble Grains.
We love Noble Grains. It's a good little beer shop. Best little beer shop on the Upper East Side. Well, that brings us into the movie here that we're going to talk about. And
is that your Texas drawl here?
You know, it's my Southern accent only comes out when I get really drunk.
Oh, we should have done this 1 second.
So, yeah, I do have.
I don't think
there is a little remnant of Richmond, Virginia, but
I don't think your Richmond's quite going to be like West Texas or.
No, you have to, if you listen to Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs, she does a pretty respectable.
That's a West Virginia, I believe.
No, that's a Virginia accent that she's doing.
Oh, I think she is from West Virginia, though. I mean, like, but you're saying
No, she's doing a regional Virginia accent in that movie.
I'm just remembering a line of Hannibal Lecter talking about her being from West Virginia. But in any sense, it's the same kind of thing.
Corn pone, he calls her.
Yeah,
That's in Silence of the Lambs 3 or something. That's the one with Ray Liotta.
That one's called Hannibal, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, none are as good as the first one, but I am kind of a fan of the scene where the guy's missing the top of his head.
Oh yeah, it's Liotta is sitting there and he's eating little hors d'oeuvres that the doctor is serving up that are actually
of the living person from their brain.
It's his own brains
while the person is still alive. Kind of sort of a homage to Dahmer.
Yes, totally.
Or a precursor to Dahmer. I don't know where the dates come in on that stuff.
I mean, that movie came out way after Dahmer. Can we have a Dahmer corner, like how we cut off and do Crash? I can just talk more about Dahmer.
We could do that. We just have to we have to figure out the sound cue, which might be a drill.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? Let's stick to this movie.
All right. So
is this technically the first Coen Brothers movie?
That's a good question. Yes, it was the directorial debut of the Coens, the first major film of cinematographer Barry Sonnenfeld, who later became a noted director, as well as the feature film debut of Frances McDormand, Joel Coen's wife. And Frances McDormand is so darn young in this movie. She looks like she's all of 19. She's so darn cute.
Also, I don't know if it's his first movie, but a shout out to Peter Kurland, who was the boom operator in this film and continued to be the sound engineer and designer, I believe, for the Coens up till this day.
Yummy. Love it.
They've kept a lot of their crew and
all the best people do.
And I think it really shows because I should have said it up top. I think the Coen brothers are the best working American filmmakers consistently for the past quarter century, coming up on like a half century, not that long from now. And they are just the people that you should look to know what a well-crafted technician's film is.
I would go with Tarantino in that spot, but I think I find your justification.
They're craftsmen.
They are both craftsmen,
and it's really interesting seeing them hone their skills in this. I think this movie's a little more hit or miss than the other spots.
It is. It's a little edgy, and the MacGuffin gets pretty lost in there.
Mm-hmm.
The story doesn't really hold together as well as it should. It's a little rough, but that's okay. When you're dealing with neo-noir, that's fine.
You see the glimpses of what they're gonna do so well, and it's interesting to see them because this is 1983 or 4, and it feels like, and it looks like,
even more than 1984.
It looks like more than it feels like a 70s movie, which is a very interesting thing for the Coen brothers to be, because if there's anything that they are, it's not that like fly-by-night 70s style of filmmaking. They have though their movies for the most part could not be more different, there is a precision to them, and there is an exactitude that creates these iconic scenes time and time and time again in all of them. And this one is a little bit more freeform and seems like it's coming out of that anti-studio system era. And it's really interesting to see them right on that cusp. And they lean, and you see them in their trajectory go towards style of filmmaking, which again is like really diverse, but there's no one else making films ever quite like them.
That's true, and I want to talk a little bit about the context of the film, because it references something that the title itself is a thing, and it derives from the Dashiell Hammett novel Red Harvest, which was written in 1929, and the term blood simple is very apropos for this movie and our times. I think it describes the addled, fearful mindset of people after a prolonged immersion in violent situations.
Now, he's simple, as in like he's like a simple person, but it's because of the violence.
Yeah,
is it PTSD?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a form of post-traumatic stress disorder, which of course
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know what the title referred to.
So that's the context that we're in, and so let's just talk about the setup of the story a little bit, because it's all about the atmosphere. You really buy these characters and the actors. Emmett Walsh is in it, who's Emmett Walsh, who sadly is no longer with us, and he is just amazing. So you set up the story for us, Mike.
Well, I watched it like 6 days ago, so I wanted to sure I get this right. But there's a couple, and we realize that they are having an affair, and one of them is married. Frances McDormand is married to a guy that I really thought was the dude from the older dude from Quantum Leap. Was not him, and it's about them being caught by a private investigator. This private investigator then presents evidence that he has murdered the couple.
Well, now you're kind of you're
I don't know how to give a synopsis.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember it.
All right. So the thing is set in Texas, and so
it's in Texas.
It's in the good old Texas, and so you got Abby, the Frances McDormand character, and Ray, played by John Getz, and they're in a car in the heavy rain, and they're talking about Abby's bad marriage, and Ray indicates that he's driving her to Houston, but instead of driving to Houston, they go to a motel and screw. And in the meantime, Julian, played by Dan Hedaya, and this is, I think, he played Nixon in something.
This is the guy that I thought was the guy from Quantum Leap.
And he does look a lot like Nixon.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. He has hired this private investigator because he's suspicious of Abby, and so sure enough, the private investigator, Lauren, played by Emmett Walsh, takes photos and brings in the evidence, and shenanigans ensue.
You see, this private investigator is the most Coen-like aspect of this film.
Yeah, he's the pre-John Goodman.
Right. Of multiple Coen brother movies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something larger than life about him. There's something very nihilistic about him. There's something just like unplaceably hilarious. Like he's the most Coen thing in this movie. And then the next things that I would put on that list are certain shots, like where there are bullet holes in the wall and these like blades of light come out, and it's just incredibly iconic, and it's so simple, but it's
and you're getting to the neo-noirness of this film, and one of the big hallmarks of neo-noir is, of course, the way light and shadow are played, and this movie, they really go all out. I mean, they don't hold back. When there's the climax of the film involves many shots being fired through a wall, and every time a new bullet hole comes, a big blast of light surges through, and yeah, it's so iconic. It's so neo-noir.
Yeah, it treats his office in the back of a bar, like the PI office in the Maltese Falcon.
Right.
No, I'm thinking of Double Indemnity.
Uh-huh.
There's really not very many sets. When you realize how few there are, you realize that this is you realize that it's a low budget movie, but like you wouldn't really think of it otherwise. And it has a very simple staging, and what's ratcheting up is not exactly action scenes over and over, but that intensity of the characters becoming a little bit more unhinged. And then I really like that it's about something like PTSD, because what's interesting about these movies, unlike an action movie, I think tell me if this is true. Do you think in a noir, the intense things that are happening to the characters actually affect them and change them within the movie? Where like in an action film, John McClane is not freaked out by the things that he does or sees,
Right.
in like an unrealistic way.
Uh-huh.
That is not true in this movie, I would say.
Yeah, and well, I think that there are some pretty glaring flaws in this film. You don't come away with it completely satisfied with the fact that Frances McDormand's character has been pulling the strings all along for she's the spider in this web. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway, right? Is that she set it up to get her husband murdered.
Yeah, and get the money from the safe.
But then I guess spoiler alert's a bit, but
He runs a bar. He runs this bar.
But so you think that's what's happening because at the end she's having to fight for her life, so she just
Well, we needed a good climax, didn't we?
so that's the real.
I mean, that's the thing that I haven't watched this movie in 20 years, and that's the thing that I always remember is the scene where Emmett Walsh is reaching around the window and he sticks his hand around the wall. He's sticking his hand out of the building and around the window that he's sticking it out of and into the window of the adjacent room that he can't see through. Hence the gunshots that go through the wall.
It's such a difficult thing to imagine having to write. Like, he sticks his arm out the window and then reaches to like another window and then like pulls open that window and then she stabs him with a
the Coens had an advantage because they knew what they wanted. They didn't really have to re-explain that stuff.
I'd be interested in how this movie got made and what they'd been doing prior to this, because I mean, this is the climax of the movie, and imagine the pitch would involve one of the brothers playing the window and the other one playing Emmett Walsh sticking his hand through the window.
No, that wouldn't work. That would take forever, and people would get bored and not
But it is
wanna...
such a fascinating use of space. I feel like we could do this whole episode on just that one scene, and in that you really get a glimpse of the way that they are able to think on paper. For some reason, I'm always very aware of the screenwriting with the Coen brothers, and they are putting on paper what is going to be an extremely powerful, iconic image, and I'm very fascinated by them. And what doesn't come up in this movie, that comes up in a lot of their movies, is like religion. And like a sort of like atheistic religious attitude, which has like elements of mysticism to it. And I feel like they're very like straightforward guys. They're not like in intense fanatics or eccentric in much way, in any real way. But there are these like ecstatic like visions of shots that come, and that translates into being very iconic.
Well, yeah. The production design is incredible, and it's important to note that this is their first movie, and by today's standards, made on a micro budget of $1.5 million, and it turned almost $4 million at the box office. Wow. So they had a pretty good running start based off of this film, and it's interesting that that they as you pointed out earlier about the crew that they used, and of course Frances McDormand. Who could forget Frances McDormand's performance in Fargo? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean they were making movie magic. There's no two ways around it. And when you think about first films, directors' first films, almost always really tell the story just kind of like a first date. How the first date goes is pretty much how the rest is going to go, and that's the story with this movie. It really points the direction for the Coens.
Do you feel like this is the progenitor of No Country for Old Men? Like there's that's another, is that Texas? It's certainly,
well, yeah, but Cormac McCarthy wrote that one.
Sure, but I mean there's such a tonal similarity, and of all of their movies, these two
and
have
Barton
like a very
Fink,
interesting
too.
straight line to it.
The John Goodman character in Barton Fink and the way the violence rolls out in that film.
Yeah, they have this relationship between humor and violence. Like it's usually the most kind of likable, larger than life character that is the sort of just personification of pure evil. What do you feel like they're getting at in this movie? It's
I think
there's
they're
not
really,
much
I think
source
they're
material.
really
This
having
is a story they wanted to
I think
tell.
they're really having fun with the genre. And I, after we had the Armand White on the show, I've been giving some more thought to genre because Armand's stance was that genre is just a commercial construct, and
Yeah, you're super into genre.
I am.
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting to me that noir films existed between they came about in 1940 and then they ended with Touch of Evil in 1959. There was about 850 noir films, and then that genre vanished. It went away, and then neo-noir came around, and
have you heard this thing that like noir? People say you're a lot better versed than me, but people say about noir is it's almost more of a they say it's more of a style or a symptom because this like unlike other genres, you start to make a list of what's in it and what's not, and you don't see it. It's almost just like the way that people at this time were telling stories versus like slasher. Right.
Well,
like,
no,
but
there's so many societal underpinnings to it, and the way that it came about, during right at the beginning of World War II, and died out right when the American dream was crashing after McCarthyism. It's a study of the underbelly, the thing, the thing that Americans in those days, everybody wanted to, whatever they wanted to try to exploit it or ignore it. And I mean, now we have Donald Trump, which is, if you want to talk about like an Emmett Walsh personification, if you will.
sure.
He is that. John Goodman in Barton Fink is our president, or will be, maybe.
I think John Goodman in that movie's a lot more likable. Like even when he's running through a fire and is murdering people, he's a lot more likable.
Oh, I like your take on that.
There is something Coen.
It's
Trump.
cynical. It's very cynical, and I think like what you were talking about, like the religious aspect or the lack thereof. It's a very it's a very secular.
I think
approach.
they're very religious atheists,
Uh-huh.
or very atheistic religious people. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny, so they're two Jewish guys from Minnesota, right? They're from I believe Minneapolis and or St. Paul, that region, and it's interesting that their debut is about people who are probably about as far different as you can get, which is these rough and tumble people in Texas. It's essentially like could have been the same set as Roadhouse, really, but they have this sort of love triangle happening, and a much more subtle story than Roadhouse. But it's almost like if you take two intellectual Jews from the Midwest and give them a plot for a murder mystery in a bar, like where will they go with it?
Yeah, I really wish that there was just that one or two extra scenes with Frances McDormand where you really got to see the gears turn, because I really feel like she's the Machiavelli character in this movie.
She absolutely. I think there would have been those scenes in a straight noir. I think that
Sure.
that would have been unavoidable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she is Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity.
Right.
She is the femme fatale, but you don't see her enough. She's not in enough scenes. She needs to be in the movie more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's not a perfect film, like we were saying. It definitely gives you glimpses of what they're going to be into.
I should also give a shout out to Filmstruck, that Blood Simple. We both watched it on Filmstruck, and so it is streaming on Filmstruck, and so I can't get enough of Filmstruck myself.
It's a good looking platform.
And I also realized that I misspoke when we talked about Filmstruck last time. We were talking about my video series on Forbes, and I was talking about Netflix Now. Excuse me, and I didn't say the Filmstruck streaming video series. So I switch off every other week. 1 week, Filmstruck streaming. The next week, Netflix Now with Cole Smithey.
With Cole Smithey. Yeah, Filmstruck for a brand new streaming service, it looks great. If I can give whatever the opposite of a shout out is, it's to HBO Go. I guess they're okay now, but boy, there were like years where I was just had this bit about how Pornhub has such a better, not that I've ever seen pornography, but has such a better streaming technology than HBO.
I'm glad that you said that, because when I hired a web designer to design my website, and the first draft that he sent me was just all wrong. It was just kind of a revision of my former site. And I said, look, I don't want to be crass, but think more Pornhub. And he got it right away. Like that did it. That's all I had to say. Pornhub, and boom.
You just go where the money is, and they have the graphic designers.
Well, they say that's how the internet
to make it work.
Pornography built the internet, and I believe it.
Yeah, I saw the Werner Herzog movie about the internet, and that was the conclusion. That was the thesis, is that porn man. It was actually, looking back, what's admirably missing from the latest Werner Herzog movie about the internet is a frank discussion of pornography. Like that's a blatant misrepresentation of what that whole thing is about. Yeah.
Well, so like the Maltese Falcon, the classic film noirs, this movie, you don't try to get too into the story. It's about the scenes. I love the scene where there's the fish. He's got the fish on the table, and the private detective. He's got his nice lighter that engraved.
His Elks Club lighter,
and he leaves it on the table. And it gets buried under the stinking fish.
What would you say the MacGuffin is? You talked about the MacGuffin. What is the MacGuffin in this movie? And let's maybe define a MacGuffin for our less nerdy listeners.
There you go. So if you think of the Maltese Falcon, that's always the classic touchstone of what a MacGuffin is. It's a thing that motivates all of the characters, but it doesn't have any real substantive. Oh boy, this beer has got me. I can't even say substantive.
Substantive. What? Well,
it doesn't have any substantive value.
I don't know if I can say that word normally. Yeah, I've seen that movie like 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's a falcon. It's wait, is Maltese a type of stone, or is that a place where falcons are carved?
I don't know.
Is that from Malta? Is that, if you're from Malta, are you a Maltese falcon?
I don't know. Isn't that?
I think the fact that we don't know the answer to this,
it
proves the point of what a MacGuffin is.
It's an enigma. It's an enigma.
But it's not an interesting. It doesn't matter. It's motivating.
It's motivating all of these characters,
right?
And so in this case, I guess the
photographs maybe. No, I feel like it's the lighter, or something like that.
Wow. Well, yeah. I think that I think Frances McDormand's the jealousy that her character provides is the MacGuffin, because everyone's so jealous.
I think this is very simplistic of me, but I think the lack of identifying exactly what is at stake and being discovered is kind of the MacGuffin. It took me a bit to get where the plot was going. I love the visuals in this. I love the tone. But the plot is essentially that this PI pretends to have murdered the two of them, and then is blackmailing.
That's the MacGuffin.
The husband.
That's the MacGuffin.
But that's the conflict. That's the inciting incident in a sense.
No, because that comes late. That's secretive. This movie, I think of it as similar to The Big Sleep, where if you get too caught up in trying to figure out what is the underpinnings of the story are, that's not the point. The point is the sequences, these great scenes. It's a very Tarantino-esque film in that way, where you just have these incredible scenes, mano a mano scenes, where the guy who hired the private detective, he thinks he's in charge because he's paying the guy, and then when he's on the phone and he offers him 10 grand to kill the couple. And it's not clear. Is it 10 grand per head or is it 10 grand for both of them? That's not, that doesn't come up. And that's a question I would have. If somebody was hiring me for that job, first off, 10 grand is way not enough money to kill another human being to begin with.
Is it enough for you to 1983 Photoshop them as being dead, though?
Well,
and then murdering that guy?
And that it is.
Yeah. What scene was missing for me was something that revealed how he had faked that. And I guess I'm not really saying that from like a screenwriting perspective, but as I want to know how the hell you paint on it. Like the couple looked like they had been shot, and he doesn't have like Adobe Illustrator. Like, how's he doing that?
No, this is the old days of the 80s when you didn't have computers.
There's
Not computers like we do now.
There's this scene in JFK where they're photoshopping Lee Harvey Oswald with the rifle and
right.
And it's like, oh yeah, they had to cut it out. They had to take a photo of the photo, and then they had to move the shadows and stuff. But it's not clear how he made a pretty convincing fake photo.
No, it's more about the times and about the integrity or lack thereof of the characters and how the characters behave. So no one has any integrity, in this movie. And I guess, my a criticism that I have about this movie is that you don't really know who you're rooting for. Right. You're not really rooting for anybody until the end, because the guy's got his hand sticking through the wall. You obviously, he's the bad guy at that point.
Yeah, he's this force of evil personified, which is there's very often a character in one of their movies, and then the people who are trying to get away from him, you root for by default.
But it's all about the inertia of the sequence. You've got this couple, and they're together, and the guy is very suspicious because he knows that the woman who he's gone through hell to be with is this diabolical witch. And they're in this room, and across the street there's a sniper, and he tells her, turn the light off, because if it's dark, the sniper can't see what to shoot. And that is such a masterfully constructed idea to begin with. I love that idea, that the sniper, when the light's off across the street, he can't see what to shoot, but then the light goes on and he's going to start shooting.
And she turns the light on.
And she does not turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah, it I've been saying it like 10 times now, but it has pieces of what they do so well. But one thing that pretty soon in their career they knock out of the park with every single time is you can, in a very good way, define the characters in their future films with 4 or 5 words just as a casual viewer, and then you can go on and on and on, but the essence of these people are telegraphed so quickly in the future. There's a lot of characters in this movie that I kind of struggle to precisely define, like the male protagonist in this, whose name I don't remember, the actor's name I don't remember.
Well, that's a good question. Who's the protagonist?
So what is the name of the guy who's sleeping with Frances McDormand?
Okay, so that's John Getz.
John Getz.
Uh-huh.
What's his character's name? I don't remember. Ray?
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Ray's just kind of like a nondescript 80s white dude.
But he's also not very smart. He goes in and he finds the corpse. All you got to do, if you walk into a room and there's a dead body,
See, he's
walk out of the room backwards. He's
not smart, but he's not a dumb guy. It's not.
But then he's gonna drag the bloody body off, and he's leaving evidence all over the place. You know, like why is he gonna insert himself in that murder? That's a huge error of judgment.
I think what the Coens get so much clearer in future movies is how to, within milliseconds, convey the essence of a character, and they continue to unravel them in complexities you couldn't imagine. Where in this they kind of just have placeholders, and they thought up of some very interesting sequences, and you know it's just
okay. So I like it. I think your point is well taken, and I think if you look at a film like Barton Fink, they've really refined everything to such a minimalist. I mean, it's so stripped down. That movie is so stripped down.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I can remember every character. I can remember the people at the front desk of the hotel, like every executive he talks to. Like there's no characters taken for granted.
Yeah,
which is like an amazing writing technique.
Steve Buscemi is the guy at the desk. So let's just before we sign off here, we're going to give you guys the lineage of the Coen brothers films. So Blood Simple was made in 1984. Their next film, starring Nicolas Cage, was Raising Arizona.
What a leap.
That's a huge leap.
That's an incredible leap, because that movie is, you have such strong characterization, and it's so,
and it's so funny. There's so funny. Much humor. They really went for the humor there. And then they went super serious, mafia style, almost The Conformist with Miller's Crossing. Then Barton Fink in 1991, and then Hudsucker Proxy, which I think is a really underrated Coen brothers film. I know that movie caught a lot of flack from critics when it came out in 94. I love that movie. And then, of course, Fargo, probably their indisputable masterpiece, if there is one, which, of course, I think there is. And then Big Lebowski, another masterpiece. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Amazing use of music. They're you know, by that time they're so sophisticated. They've got so much going on. They can do anything.
And they were on the cutting edge of using digital film alteration. They basically were color correcting digitally for the first time, and to like tremendous effect. So it's interesting that there is a sort of like very traditionalist style to them, and I want you to keep going. And
So then we have The Man Who Wasn't There, also a really underrated film, black and white with Billy Bob Thornton. Wow, we really should do The Man Who Wasn't There.
I saw that years ago, and I would love to do it. It's
love that movie.
Really undermentioned of theirs.
And then they started sliding backwards.
They had some hit or misses.
Yeah, they ran into some problems. Intolerable Cruelty.
There's two bad Coen movies, and I think you're about to name them in a row.
Yeah, I think you're right. Although I love Catherine Zeta-Jones. Intolerable Cruelty, not the best film. And then The Lady Killers.
Yes.
Why? No, don't even go there. But they did.
They've earned the goodwill. They
did. They get a pass, but that was a huge mistake. And then they snapped it all back into shape with No Country for Old Men.
The Academy Award Best Picture winner.
There you go, 2007. And then Burn After Reading, really fun movie, really enjoyable film with George Clooney. That I think the second time they worked with George Clooney after Intolerable Cruelty. Thank you to Two Brothers for getting me really drunk already, and without even trying. And then A Serious Man in 2009. Love that movie. That movie is just.
I don't know the name of that. I don't know the name of that lead actor, but Boardwalk Empire. He's on latest season of Transparent. And you
could watch that guy sit in the park and you'd feel like you got your money's worth.
God, he's amazing.
It's got to be. I don't want to misname the actor. Yes, here it is. His name. It's just a little difficult to pronounce with this much beer in me. Michael Stuhlbarg.
You're a god, Michael Stuhlbarg.
Michael Stuhlbarg. He's got to be a New Yorker, right? No, he's in Long Beach. He was born in Long Beach. He's got such a New York thing going. That guy. Love Michael Stuhlbarg. Great actor. All right, so then we go on. Let's see, where are we now?
Is a True Grit up next?
Yes, it is.
True Grit.
It's 2010.
More true to the original book, apparently. Than
And so
the John Wayne
enjoyable,
one.
so
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Loved their version of True Grit. So great.
Hail Caesar, right?
Nope, you missed one.
What did I miss? Oh, Inside Llewellyn Davis.
Amazing.
I totally drunk spoke that. Inside Llewellyn Davis. Yes, that's a great movie.
And also shout out to Jeff Bridges for True Grit, because everything that Jeff Bridges does is freaking amazing.
Yeah, to think that he's the dude, and then also was in the True Grit.
And
remake is
if you
amazing.
ever get the chance to see Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show, that's his debut.
Yeah.
He's about 18 years old, and he is so damn good.
Well, we've talked about her before at great length. The thing about The Last Picture Show,
Oh, yes? Do tell, Mike. The nudity?
Candace Bergen.
No, it's not Candace Bergen.
Candace, whatever.
No.
What's her? Oh fuck! I'm really drunk right now.
I like it. This is why we drink beer on this show.
Oh fuck! The one Bogdanovich was banging. That's in.
That ruined his marriage?
That's in the Goodbye Kid. The kiss. The not the good, but the Good Luck Chuck.
I love seeing you struggle.
I'm so not.
See, this is what
great.
9.5 does to you, because it
I'm not-
makes you forget the unforgettable
The
Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. Dangerous.
Maybe I'm just becoming old,
I have to
but-
just put it out there, between Sybil Shepherd and Ally
Candace Bergen.
and Ally McGraw.
Yeah.
There is so much femininity between those two women that it will just,
Femininity?
yeah, that's a word.
It is.
I mean, it would be demeaning to say estrogen. That's not what I mean. Femininity, sensuality, nubility. How's that? Sexiness.
Pornhub.com/Peter Bogdanovich. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you all so much for listening, especially to our listeners in the UK. I know you guys have been paying attention to our hypernormalization, and we're trying to wrangle Ted Rall to come in and talk about a certain Adam Curtis documentary that we're not going to name right here because we want to keep you guys guessing. And, of course, to all of our listeners in Canada, Australia, France.
Yeah, our friends across the pond. If you know Adam Curtis, if you are Adam Curtis,
Yeah, hey, Adam, if you're in New York, come on over. The beers are on us.
totally, and they're high gravity.
Yeah, and you get to pick the movie. Wouldn't that be awesome to have Adam Curtis pick whatever movie he wants to talk about?
What movie do you think Adam Curtis would pick?
I have no idea.
I think it would be like one of those like Bikini Beach movies from the 50s with like
Maybe Rock and Roll High School.
right.
That would be good.
Yeah. Oh, you would love if he was in the punk. That would be right up your alley.
Yeah, and also it'd be really interesting to hear what Adam Curtis thinks of Ted Rall's work.
Well, let's get him on there.
All right, so if anybody in the UK has connections with Adam Curtis, have him call us up, email us, whatever, and let us know when he's in NYC. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been Cole Smithey and Mike Lacy with La Grande Bouffe.
The big feast.